Hello everyone, welcome to our final video. We'll be discussing adding in the finishing touches to our app and discussing and explaining how these last files set up to what we'll ultimately see in our demo of the app. So if you're ready, let's begin. So first, let's begin by showing off an example of our app. So if we go down here to, or on the right side to our emulation, we have launched the app. You do that by pressing the little play button on the top here. I've already launched this since it might take a while depending if it's your first time. So here we had the menu where we had our notes. We're going to go here to add a note. We're going to go ahead and just start typing random stuff, like let's say eat pizza, for example. We're going to click on confirm. We're going to see that we wrote it down, eat pizza. We're going to add a note. Let's put that as a green. And next we can see where we've added the date of it and also the timestamp of when we added it. So let's go ahead here and type sleep instead. So now we have sleep. Now we have confirm it. We can add it to our notes. And let's put that one as purple. So we have different colors here. Let's try one more. Let's say jog. Jog, jogging if not, right? So now we can add that note. And let's put that one as blue. So now we have different types of notes and different colors, different different times we put it in, and then the notes. So now in our notes, we can also have the option to, as well as pinning our favorite note. So maybe we will have a note that we think is important that we want to remember later on. What we do is press pin, and now when we go to the top, we can see a star. We can see that our note has been pinned. Now we also have the option, though, maybe we don't want one of these notes, we can delete them. We can do that by clicking and holding one of our notes and going ahead and press delete. All right, and as you can see, the app works pretty functional, and it's a nice little handy app to have when you want to take a quick note and you don't have your phone with you. So let's go ahead and take off the emulator and actually explain what's going on. So to actually begin, we're going to be going here to our activity main file. So now this is basically like the layout that defines what we actually see on the screen when the app runs on the watch. So everything that appears visually, the title, the notes, the list, the input box, and the button, it's all built here. So first off, at the very top, we've got the roots layout. It's basically called a linear layout. This basically stacks elements in a straight line, either vertically or horizontally. In our case, we set Android orientation to vertical, so everything is stacked from top to bottom. It's simple and clean, which is perfect for the watch screen. If we go here, it looks like I had it here. We have the linear layout, we have the text view, we have the list view, we have the edit text view, and the button. And I'll go ahead to explain what each of these does. So now, if we go to give a few details off, inside this we have Android padding. We set it to 6 dp. This basically means that it just adds a little spacing around the edges so that the content isn't right up against the border of the screen. And then the background color, we have it set to things like FAFF. This basically gives like a light gray tone. While it's not completely white, it just gives a soft background to make the text and buttons stand out a bit better. Another first element that we have inside this layout is the text view. That basically says watch notes, and that's just the title of the app shown on the screen. We made the text bold, slightly larger at 18 SP, and centered it horizontally using layout gravity equals center. So the small layout margin button pushes the next element a little bit lower, giving it some space so it kind of appears like the app header. Next up is the list view. This is the one that's in the middle. This is what actually displays all the notes the user adds. So we give an ID called note list because the Kotlin code needs to find it later to update it dynamically. The height is set to 0 with the layout weight equals to 1, which means that it will expand to fill up any leftover space in the layout. This is commonly used as like a little trick in Android. Next we have the divider between the note uses at Android color / darker _ gray, and we gave it a height of 1 just to make each note clearly separated. The padding keeps everything inside the list a little more comfortable and manageable to read. Below that we have edit text. So going down here to edit text, this basically is the input field. So the user types their note here. It's given the ID note input, and we put a hint saying add a note so people know to type their responses there. We also used Android IME options. We set it to action done. So that's basically when the user finishes typing and hits done on the keyboard, it can feel clean and quick instead of switching lines or adding extra spacing. So next we have the input type. We've set it to text, cap, spaces. It just makes sure that each new sentence starts with a capital letter automatically. We've also styled it a bit, so the small padding, the minimum height is easy to tap and built in for the Android background for the text boxes. And finally at the bottom we've got the add note button. This one's simple. It's add notes button. So the label says add note and it matches the same size and padding styles as the input boxes above so that they look consistent all across. We'll basically connect this button to the calling collator so that when it's tapped it actually adds a note to the list above it or to the above. The nice thing about the layout is how balanced it is and how everything's vertically aligned with each other. So now with this we can actually go on and talk about the main activity. So if we go down here, or let's go back up here, let's go to main activity. We can actually start beginning to explain what each of this does here. There you go. Okay, so now with the main activity, this is where basically all the main logic of the app is resides in, lives in. So everything that the user interacts with, like adding a note, deleting, or picking colors, all of that happens through this file. At the top, we've got all the imports. These just bring in the tools the app needs. Things like the alert dialog for pop-up menus, color for handling colors, the list view, the button, and so on. We also import simple data format and date from the Java library so that we can automatically add a timestamp to each note. Then we also have things like a data class note. This basically helps define what a note actually is in our app. So each note has a few parts: the text of the note, the date when it was created, a color, and then a pinned flag. The last one, pin, starts a false, but if the user decides to pin a note, it'll show at the top of the list. So basically every note is an object with a few small pieces of data that we can easily manage. Next up, we've got the main activity class itself, which extends component activity. So this is like the main screen of the app. This is the one that launches when we open it. Next, inside the class, we have some private variables like list view, input, and add button. These are just connections to the layout elements from the XML file. Notes is an array list that will store all our note objects. And then the adapter is used to display that list on screen when it converts our note data into actual text shown on the list view. So moving down, we have the onCreate function. So if I can scroll down here. Okay. So basically what happens here on the onCreate function, so this is like the very first thing that runs when the app starts. It sets up the layout, the hooks, everything up, and it prepares like the logic for buttons and list. We start by setting the layout with the set content view or layouts. That's basically what links this content file to the XML we built earlier on. Then we use the find view build to link each variable, so now that the calling code knows exactly which text view, edit text, and button to interact with. After that, we set up the adapter. We're using a custom array adapter here so that we can control how each note looks inside the list. And then once inside it, we override the getView function, which is called for every single note. So this part will basically set how the note, the text, the date, and the color appear. So we grab the note for the position, then set the first line of text. If it's pinned, we add a little star emoji in front of it. The second line shows the date in a smaller, darker text, and then the background color changes based on the color the user picked for it. So when we had like green, purple, blue, things like that. And then once that's done, we attach the adapter to the list view. So here, the list adapter. Okay. And now we can also handle like the note button. So when the user taps add a note, the app first will check if the input is empty. If it is, we just show a small message saying that it'll ask us or ask the user to enter something first. If it's not empty, we call the show color picker function and then clear the input box. So where is that at? So basically, like I said, we have the adapters here and the color pickers. We have here the background color notes. All right, and then basically to keep on expanding, the show color picture function is what lets the user choose a color for their note. So it'll create a small pop-up with a list of color names like we had earlier, like red, green, blue, yellow, and purple. So when the user taps on one, it grabs the matching color code. It'll add the current date and time, and then it'll create a new note object with all the information that we've gathered. And so then that note is then added to the list, and we call it the update list so that we can refresh everything. And so speaking of the update list, a small helper function that sorts the notes, it also helps and makes sure that the pin notes always stay at the top, and then sorts the rest by the date so that the most recent ones appear first. And then once it's done sorting, it tells the adapter that the list has changed, so the screen updates right away. And basically we can have that more here, where we have the show color picker, and that's basically what we were saying earlier with the different types of choices for color. Right? Basically with this, we've reached the end of the video. I hope this video was helpful, insightful in learning how to build an app on OSWare, and I appreciate you taking the time to watch this. Please feel free to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Thank you, and I will see you in the next one. Have a good one.